Good morning and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. I've been doing these morning reflections for more than a year now. In fact, I've never been quite sure what I should call them. They aren't classes, but I'll bet sometimes you learn some things. They aren't quite devotions either, but they do have devotional aspects to them. They aren't sermons, and yet sometimes they preach. Recently, someone called them your morning moments. And frankly, that fits as well as just about anything else. I enjoy doing them, and the only problem for me is coming up with the weekly topics. You need something that's interesting, fits into a series of 5, and also leads me to have something to say. After a year, some weeks I'm scrounging around looking for a topic. This past week, I asked Nan for ideas, and she came up with a great one. She said, "Have you done something on children in the Bible?" So that's our plan this week. I plan to look at some Bible stories where children play a significant role. So often children are easy to overlook, and yet they are a valuable part of God's creation, loved members of God's flock as much as anyone. This week we're going to look to find how they are sometimes God's servants, just like adults. Today I want to start with Miriam. We looked at her a week or so ago as we talked about music in the Bible, and we talked about how she sang and danced after the Hebrew people passed through the Red Sea. But that's not the first time we encounter Miriam. The first story about Miriam happens when she was just a child. Let me set the stage. The Hebrew people were slaves in Egypt, and at one point the Pharaoh grew concerned that they were getting to be too many to control and keep as slaves, so he ordered all male children who were born to be killed. That was about the time that Moses was born. Like any mother, Moses' mother didn't want her baby to die, and so for about 3 months she was successfully able to hide him and keep him safe. As he grew, however, that was no longer feasible. So she concocted the idea to put him in a watertight basket and set him adrift in the river. Perhaps someone would find him and rear him. At worst, he would die, and that was no different than if the soldiers found him. This way, at least, he had a chance. Just a little sidebar here. A few years ago, we had a support group for mothers who had sent their children off to college, and we named it the Jochebed Group. Jochebed was Moses' mother's name, and setting her child adrift on his own reminded us a lot of sending a kid off to college on their own as well. But Jochebed didn't leave Moses all alone. She tasked his older sister, Miriam, to hide in the reeds by the river and watch what happened to the baby. As it happened, the Pharaoh's daughter came to bathe in the river and found the basket and the child. Miriam heard the princess decide to keep the baby and stepped forward to say, "I know a woman who recently had a child who could nurse this child for you." And so it was all arranged that Moses' own mother would nurse and care for Moses as he grew in the Pharaoh's court. Isn't it amazing how God sets things in motion to work out just the way they should all along? But let's also notice Miriam's courage to watch and then to step forward at the right time. It was the first step on the road to salvation for God's people. Before we leave Miriam, however, let's also give thanks that as we float along the river of life, we drift under the eyes and the protection and care of God. That's what really floats our boat. Thanks for watching, and remember to let this day belong to God.